Friends, if I could... Friends, if I could have your attention for just a moment. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of people here that would all like to be able to see the family. We would ask for you to make your way forward, let the family acknowledge your presence and see them briefly, and then move along so other people would have a chance and the opportunity to see the family. Thank you. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, at this time we are going to begin the funeral services for Sue Pinsky-Gardner. If you have a cell phone or a pager, I would ask for you to please take a moment to turn it off or place it in the silent mode. And officiating today's services will be Rabbi Paul Cohn, Rabbi Rachel Heaps, and Cantor Emerita Amy Zussman.
There is a ritual that we perform when we've experienced an immediate loss. The ritual is called kriya. The Hebrew word literally means a tearing. It comes to us from the Torah, from the book of Genesis, when our ancestor Jacob was told that his son Joseph had been killed. Jacob tore the clothing that he was wearing. It was a sign of grief and sadness, to be sure, but also a sign of the confusion and sometimes even the anger that we feel when someone that we love is taken from our midst. The Kriya ribbon, which we use today, also serves as an outward sign to those who will meet in the coming days that indeed there has been a tear in the fabric of our lives. And so without saying a word, people will see the ribbon and know how to respond accordingly. Sue Pinsky-Gardner loved to bring people together. Any excuse for a party, the drop of a hat, she was there. There was a theme, there was food, there was a lot of laughter. And although the reason that we have gathered is tremendously sad, we're filled with grief, at the same time, I have to imagine Susie would be really happy to see everybody here this morning and would want us to celebrate her life and not to dwell on her passing, but to share the memories, the stories, the light and the laughter, and to do so enthusiastically, because that's the way Susie approached life, with tremendous enthusiasm. I also know that she would have been very happy that there was no cap on the number of people who could be present this morning, as there might have been in previous celebrations where she needed to be told, you can't invite everybody, you can't have everybody, you just can't. And how pleased that she would be to see the women in the family wearing the brooches that she so loved, that were themed to holidays and life, and of course the scarves as well, that she had for each and every holiday, each and every occasion. Susie loved life, and we celebrate her love and her life this morning in paying tribute to this wonderful, enthusiastic, kind, and generous person.
Shiviti Adonai L'negdi tamid ki mimini balemot. Lachen samach libi vayagel kivodi afisari yishkon lavetach. Ki lo tazov nafshi lisho lo titen chasir chalerot shachot todeni משמחות את פניך נעימות במנחה נצח. שיביתי אדוני לנגדי תמיד, כי מימיני בא למות.
Susie never made a secret of what was important to her, of being kind and being generous and loving the people that were in your life and collecting and holding on to friends and being with them in the good times as well as the difficult times. That was so important to her. And as I was thinking about the qualities that Susie possessed, I was drawn to a poem that I've shared before that I think so beautifully, if she were to leave us specific words, that these would be her words. The poem is called Epitaph and was written by Merritt Malloy, and many of you may be familiar with it. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known and loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live on your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. We acknowledge that death has taken our beloved Susie. Our friends grieve in their darkened world, and in their silence there's lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For Susie's love that united us in life and which death cannot sever. For her companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It teaches us of our kinship with the divine, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. Psalm 23, the Shepherd's Psalm.
Adonai roi lo echsor bino deshe yarbitzeni al me menuchot ינעלני. נפשי שובב ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק, ינחני במעגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי ילך בגיא מוות לא ירא רע, אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני, לפני, שולחן נגד צוררי, דשנת ושם ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני, כל ימי חיי, כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. אדוני רואי לא אחסור, אדוני רואי לא אחסור.
On the inside of our pamphlets, we read the translation of the 23rd Psalm together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
When Shabbat begins this evening, around many tables, blessings will be offered. The blessing over the candles that mark the beginning of Shabbat, the blessing, the kiddush over the wine, the motzi, the blessing over the challah, the special loaf of bread baked in honor of Shabbat and that carries through the meal itself. And there are also opportunities to bless those around the table. Husbands to bless their wives, wives to bless their husbands, parents to bless their children, blessing for guests at the table. And the words that are given to a husband to recite over his wife, the words of blessing, come to us from the book of Proverbs. And separately, this section is known as Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. And truly, Sue Pinsky-Gardner was a woman of valor. A woman of valor who can find. She is more precious than fine pearls. Her husband trusts in her, and so he lacks nothing. She does him good, never harm all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hands to the poor. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband sings her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you excel them all. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevorach. God has given and God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. In ancient people, we are well acquainted with grief and the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us, Yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave, and that there is strength in faith. With Job, we say, Adonai Natan, God, you have given. You gave us a loved one, Sue Pinsky-Gardner. For all that was good and enduring in her life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai Lakach, God, you have taken away. We pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and your love, as we now say, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach. Blessed be the name of God, now and forever. Amen. We invite you to take these next few moments to call forward the cherished memories that you have of Susie's life and how her love touched each of our hearts in this moment of silent reflection.
May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, be acceptable in your sight. God, our rock and our Redeemer, God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen.
We know that words that come from the heart go straight to the heart. And as we continue this celebration of Susie's life, we do so first with the words of her family. We'll hear from her brother Jimmy and then her son Mark.
Diane and I were fortunate enough to have spent time the entire Thanksgiving weekend with Susie and Phil at their home in Highland Park. Susie was her usual self, happy, upbeat, funny, and full of life, the way she's been all of her life. After all, Susie had always been blessed with the ability to live happily in the present moment and not let the worries of the past or worries of the future overwhelm her current state of mind. This was her strategy, and it served her very well. Other evidence of a life well-filled, well-lived, was just taking one look at her social calendar. I don't know if you remember, Susie had a calendar on her kitchen wall, not one of these little ones. These are the ones with the big squares, leaving lots of space to write in there. Every space was filled in weeks ahead of time with activities and gatherings, including people to see, places to go, and things to do. Rarely would I see any white space anywhere on her calendar. Each day was book solid. Her secret, of course, was to live each day to the fullest and to be among friends and family as often as possible. Susie was especially diligent in staying in touch with all of her friends and relatives, whether they lived down the street or in another city. And speaking of friends, Susie had so many of them. She had grammar school friends, high school friends, college friends, work friends, temple friends, 3 different temples, by the way, Florida friends, water aerobic friends. Who has water aerobic friends? Susie did. Book club friends, discussion group friends, and on and on. Her number one asset, in my eyes, was that she was always kind and genuinely interested in other people. She so easily connected with others. It's no wonder that she touched the lives of hundreds, perhaps thousands, of people from all walks of life over the years, forming deep and lasting bonds with many of them. Being extroverted was also a plus for Susie. She had absolutely no problem starting a conversation with total strangers and then finding something in common with them. That was her secret sauce. She also had the ability to always see the good in everyone. In my whole life, I've never heard her utter a harsh word to or about anyone. Negativity had no place in her heart. Susie brought out only the best in people, in both the young and the old. She made each person she met feel valued and important. Susie and her family also gave generously of their time and money, not only to Jewish charitable causes, but also to philanthropic organizations involved in medical research and medical education. In particular, Susie's dedication over the many decades was in the nurturing of Jewish education and Jewish tradition. That actually defined her character and gave her the greatest sense of joy. When she was younger, Friday nights might find her in a nursing home, bringing in the light of Shabbat to those who needed it the most, leading in the singing of Jewish melodies, and singing wasn't her, she probably was a C+ in voice, but singing in Jewish melodies for the residents was a source of comfort for them. Even those battling the shadows of dementia often smiled and attempted to sing along. For Diane and me, the many fond and loving memories of Susie will forever be etched in our hearts. That precious Thanksgiving weekend, just a few short weeks ago, was the last time I saw Susie. What I do remember, though, just before leaving for the airport and saying our goodbyes, was grabbing a mug from Susie's kitchen. She had lots of mugs. I grabbed a random mug and to take a last-minute sip of coffee. What caught my eye, though, was on that coffee mug was inscribed the words, "Making the world a better place since 1942." Obviously, this was a birthday gift from her 80th birthday from one of her friends. I couldn't help but reflect on the profound truth conveyed in that simple statement. Susie did indeed make the world a better place for those of us who had the privilege of knowing her. I will miss my sister dearly.
You're going to notice some similar themes here. There was a sign that hung in the front hall of our old house in Briarwood Vista. That was a gift from my mom's dear friend, Marcia Schwartz. The sign read in Hebrew, Sora Brana, my mom's Hebrew name. Sora Brana, she speaks with a kind tongue. I always thought that sign perfectly captured the essence of my mother. My mom believed in the best of people and spoke as sweetly about them behind their backs as she did when they were all together. My mom basically lived her entire life in Chicago and the suburbs, moving to whatever area, Garfield Park, Rogers Park, Skokie, Highland Park, and Deerfield, that had the highest concentration of delis. However, my mom didn't think about it that way. Each of these locations was a new place for her to make new friends. My mom used to organize her friends in groups, and I think you've heard a couple of these groups already, but not meant to be exhaustive here. The Indale Manor friends, the Gale School friends, the Sullivan High School friends, the University of Illinois friends, the JCC friends, Steve's Med School friends, Steve's Army friends, the Michael Reese friends, the Briarwood Vista friends, the Sherwood School friends, the Lawrence Lane friends, the Swim Club friends, aforementioned, the Book Club friends, the Florida friends, Phil's Bike Club friends, the Hibernia friends, and probably 10 other groups that I failed to recall. When we threw her 80th birthday party last year, and I limited her, the cruel son that I was, to only 100 friends, that was all the backyard could fit. It was a very, very difficult conversation because Mom did not know what she would be able to tell the other 200 people who she thought would be heartbroken because they couldn't attend. You should know that my mom truly cherished your friendships. Your joys were her joys, and your pain was her pain. My mom loved nothing more than talking on the phone to her 100 closest friends, virtually every day. My mom was a world-class early childhood educator. She started working at a summer camp at age 12, and like most of us, decided to do whatever she was doing at age 12 for the rest of her life. She taught moms and tots at the Jewish Community Center and other Jewish organizations around town for more than 50 years. I once calculated that she had probably taught more than 5,000 children in her career, which meant that she had sung head, shoulders, knees, and toes almost 100,000 times. Mom was very proud of the impact that she had on children and viewed it as a privilege that she was able to provide them with some of their first Jewish experiences. My mother was a woman of great faith, strength, and courage. When my father passed away and she became a widow at 61, she didn't ask why or bury herself in grief, but instead was thankful for all the good years and happy years that they had had together. When my mom was diagnosed with leukemia and given a 15% chance to live, she told me that she was going to try her best to beat it, but if she didn't survive, then she had a fantastic life and was grateful for all of her blessings. When she was 50 feet away from people who tragically lost their lives on July 4th at the parade, she didn't dwell on it. In fact, she actually went to a barbecue that night because my mom hated to miss a party. Mom was deeply committed to her family. As a daughter, as a daughter-in-law, as a sister-in-law, as an aunt, as a cousin, as a mother-in-law, as a makatonistum, as a stepmother, stepsister, grandmother, there was nobody who was ever more devoted to her family. She never forgot a birthday, never forgot an anniversary, and absolutely never forgot a yahrzeit. Her sister-in-laws and her makatonistum were some of her very best friends in the world, and a week did not go by that she didn't speak to each and every one of them. Mom was deeply devoted to her own mother, my Grandma Bibi, who she worshiped and admired. They spoke every day, and Mom learned her positive outlook on life and her somewhat questionable cooking skills from my Grandma Bibi. Mom was a tremendous daughter-in-law also to my Grandma Louise, the first daughter that she ever had in a home with 3 boys, and took wonderful care of her over many, many decades. It was an absolute joy to see my mom together with my Uncle Jibby, watch them tease each other, sing together, somewhat unfortunately at times, vacation together, and talk about their lives together. As adults, they lived a mile apart in Florida, and he and Diane took wonderful care of Mom and my dad and Phil. Mom was the best grandmother for her 5 grandchildren: Emma, Rebecca, Josh, Jane, and Sophie. Despite a very, very busy social life, she rarely missed a baseball game, soccer game, school play, dance recital, swim meet. They all loved staying at Grandma's house, digging in her jewelry box, playing dress up in her closet, swimming in her pool in Florida. Although her 5 grandchildren are all very, very accomplished, what she was most proud about is that they've grown into outstanding adults who are thoughtful and kind, share a sense of humor, and understand the importance of family. My mom was married to my dad for 38 years, and they passionately loved each other. They traveled together, they laughed together, they supported each other, they enjoyed theater together, volunteered together, built a home together, and raised 2 children together who were always the center of their lives. Although there were occasional fights about a checkbook that my mom could never correctly balance, they cared deeply for one another, and Mom took wonderful care of my dad when he got sick and died at too young of an age. However, Mom was lucky enough not to just have one happy marriage, but 2. When my mom told my Grandma Louise, my father's mom, that she was going to marry Dr. Philip Gardner, Grandma Louise told her that some Jewish girls spend their whole life trying to marry one doctor, and Susie was able to marry 2. Phil and Mom have been married for almost 18 years and spent virtually every minute of the day together. Phil, you've been a wonderful companion, listener, largely because you couldn't get a word in, caregiver to my mother, and I cannot be more grateful to have you and your family and your friends in our lives. Thank you for everything you've done for my mother and our family. As a mom, there was no better one for me and my sister. It is a bit of a cheat code to have an early childhood educator as a mom. Every day of our childhood was filled with picnics and field trips, games, and songs. She welcomed our friends into our home, usually with popcorn and powdered drink mix, because she would never have spent money for high C, and made everyone feel special. She instilled in her children a wonderful sense of self-confidence, arguably a little too much, a love of laughter, and a commitment to philanthropy and serving our community. My sister was wise enough last year to work with my mom on putting together a book of the stories of her life. And this book has given us great comfort in the past week as we've been reading it to her by her bedside. I want to read you a quote from my mom, talking about her own mom, but then in a lot of ways about herself. My mom would say she was like her mom in terms of her personality and her optimistic nature at looking in the world. My mom would say about herself, "I always look on the bright side, and I'm able to compartmentalize when the bad stuff comes along." She was always told that she was born under a lucky star, and good things would happen for her, and she always believed those to be true. My mom said I'm almost 80 now, and so I would consider that I've lived a full and good life. I did not know how life would evolve, but I'm satisfied that this is how it was supposed to be. Mom, you filled the world with laughter. Mom, you filled the world with laughter, with joy, with compassion, with love, and although we will miss you dearly, your memory will always be for a blessing. Love you, Mom.
It is written concerning a great Hasidic teacher, when the hour came from Rabbi Elimelech to depart from the world, he placed his hands on the foreheads of his 4 disciples and gave them each a portion of his soul. To the seer of Lublin, he gave the light of his eyes. To the Maggid of Koznitz, he gave his heart. To Rabbi Mendel of Prustik, he gave his mind, and to Rabbi Abt, he gave the power of the tongue. What a beautiful story. So to live that when we die, there will be a light in our eyes worth someone's guarding, a heart worth someone's remembering, a mind worth recalling, and a tongue whose wisdom death does not still. This was Sue. Her inner light brought life and warmth to family and friends. Sue was, as you know, always able to see the good. Her heart was enormous. Her mind was sharp, her memory was keen, and her tongue shared words of kindness generously throughout her life. Sue's light was first kindled some 81 years ago born the oldest of two children to Martin and Bertha. Her brother Jimmy soon followed. The family first lived on Chicago's Great West Side. And following the path of Jewish migration, as you've heard, they went from there to Rogers Park, then on to Skokie, and ultimately to the North Shore. Susie was possessed of a creative spirit that would serve her so well as a camp counselor and an early childhood educator. She used her father's dress forms to make costumes for the plays that she would create for her friends. She had such a big heart. She made lifelong friends, as you've heard, from childhood throughout her life and the different groups, the different communities that she formed. She kept every friend she ever made. Sue had a passion for people and for building community. She was the epitome of social. She loved filling her house with family and friends. There was always room at the holiday table or at the countless parties she would throw, unless somebody else put a cap on that, then there's... Every occasion was an occasion to bring people together. Sue would never leave you and would always be there for you when you were her friend, when you were a part of her circle. Julie shared how incredible it was that Sue was there for her mother when so many were not. The words of kindness, well, they were always on her lips. Sue could talk to anyone, as you've heard, and was not afraid of taking on the lion's share of the conversation. Sue showed up for people when things were tough. And then there was the phone. Sue would always answer the phone, sometimes at great peril. She would answer any call at any time. There was a broken finger, a sprained ankle. In fact, the family was pretty sure that this would be her demise, answering the phone. Her eyes brought forward light. Sue saw the good and maintained a positive outlook throughout her life. And she was the consummate teacher. She loved being a camp counselor, being involved with camp, which began when she was just 12 years old and was plucked by other counselors to help them in leading one of the groups of campers. Sue brought all of this together in what in Musar we call the midah, the spiritual attribute of zirizut, translated sometimes as alacrity, but better translated, I think, as enthusiasm. This was her approach to life. Everything was the best, and she meant it. Indeed, she shared that being enthusiastic is what was so attractive about her to other people. And the reason that she had so many, I think back in the day we would call them gentlemen callers. She would say it wasn't because she was the prettiest or the smartest, but she was the most enthusiastic. Somebody would say something, she'd say, I love that. Take her somewhere, I love here. This is the best. And she meant it. As a camper, she was described as the spark plug of the group. Beautiful. And she wore that with honor. Soon after graduating from the University of Illinois as a recreation major, Sue and Stephen were fixed up on a blind date, again through a camp connection. First was a phone call during the Academy Awards, as it was, that led to a date that led to Sue clearing her calendar of other dates. They were soon married and shared, as you've heard, 38 years of life and love until Stephen's untimely passing. Their love brought Mark and Lisa into the world. And she was, as you've heard, an amazing mother. Very hands-on. You heard about picnics and field trips and projects and songs. Their home was the center of activity for the neighborhood. She wanted to make everything fun and that everything was a learning opportunity. Old and young felt Sue's warm and welcoming embrace. Lisa shared that there were always room for her friends that she brought home from college at the Thanksgiving table and other celebrations. She thrived on this energy, Susie did. The more people, the more joy. Sue loved to entertain. And Sue could not be embarrassed by anything. She would break out in song I'm told that she would sing along during services, whether it was the right tune or the right words. She would sing right along here at Temple with a cantor and others who were leading the worship. They were members of Jeremiah for 45 years. Sue lived with enthusiasm. The family enjoyed traveling often to wherever Stephen had a conference. All over the United States and Europe, she explored the world. And Sue was always able to find the Jewish, wherever she was, in museums, places of interest. And words of kindness, they meant deeds of kindness for Susie. She was very generous with her time. She loved her work with 2- and 3-year-olds at the JCC and loved working in the Jewish community and felt that she was giving back after receiving so much. She was very generous with her resources as well, giving to so many causes. Mark commented that there were at least 50 different donations that she was making in the course of a single year. And then there was hands-on, Ma'ut Chitim, Walk for Israel. As you heard, she became a chaplain, volunteering in Jewish skilled nursing facilities and leading worship there on Friday evenings. Sue rejoiced as Mark brought Lisa into the family and Lisa brought Jonathan. She embraced them and embraced their families. She was so sensitive to her Machatanim, and then, of course, there were the grandchildren, Emma and her Isabel, Rebecca, Jane, Josh, Sophie. She continued with projects, not just what others might do in simply standing there with grandchildren and braiding the challah. She actually had them making grape juice, getting the grapes together and stomping on them to make the grape juice. She spoke and maintained connections with each of her grandchildren at least once a week. Everything was an opportunity for fun and adventure. As you heard, some are blessed to find love once in a lifetime. Sue was blessed to find love twice. Phil and Adrian, Sue and Stephen were friends for many decades. They used to go out together, even travel together. When each lost their spouses, their friendship blossomed into something more. Phil asked Sue out, first to Northbrook Court for a meal at Stir Crazy, and then a movie, then a trip to Milwaukee for an art show. Sue brought a picnic, of course. They became a couple very quickly, as they had already been dear friends. No surprise that their wedding had to be capped at 200 people. She was not entirely happy about that. Sue wanted to include everyone. The same was true with her 80th birthday party. Her circle of friends is enormous. The community that Sue built. Phil and Sue shared a wonderful relationship. Phil told me that he would, how he would describe an outcome of a conversation. He would say, "We took a vote, and I lost." Their relationship was built on compassion and sharing, embracing 2 congregations, Temple Jeremiah and Bethel. Theirs was a very happy marriage. Phil's children became hers. His grandchildren became her grandchildren. They shared so much in warmth of her embrace. Susie had a tremendous heart. Her hallmark was compassion. She cared deeply about people, and as you've heard, she remembered every birthday, every anniversary, every yard site. Sue remembered people and wanted to take care of them. She was always adding people that she cared about to our Misha Berach list. There were always at least 4 or 5 people that she was thinking of and praying for their healing. When someone would give her a gift, she would make it a point that every time she saw that person, she would be wearing whatever it was that she had been given. This was a hallmark. She was a natural teacher and a lifelong learner. There were classes at Northwestern, at Temple. She even had a transistor radio that she would put under her pillow at night, listening to WGN to learn and to grow. Sue did not take anything in her life for granted. Sue was grateful for her family, for her friends. As she battled AML, she did so with a positive attitude and a healthy dose of humor. She was grateful and unafraid. As you've heard, she said, I've had a good life. She understood that profoundly. Fortunately, she exceeded all her doctor's predictions and expectations and shared more time with family and friends. Sue never said no. She always wanted to be a part of what was going on, didn't want to miss anything. Unsurprisingly, Sue was able to spend Thanksgiving, as you've heard, with her whole family. What a wonderful gift that they did not know at the time would be their last best memory of their time with Sue. Sue lived her life with light in her eyes, a heart worth remembering, a mind worth recalling, and a tongue that spoke kindness. May we carry her light in our eyes, cherish and remember her heart that she shared so generously. May we carry on her legacy of teaching and learning, of building community and nurturing our friendships. In this way, Sue Pinsky-Gardner will continue to be a blessing to each of us privileged to be touched by the beauty of her life. And to this let us say, Amen. We invite you to rise as you are able for El Maleh Rachamim, the memorial prayer.
El Maleh Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamtzeh Menucha Nechana, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, Im Kedoshim Utorim, Kizohar Haraki HaMasirim, Et Nishmat Sarah Brina, Bat Mordechai Bracha, Shahalcha Leolama, Bal HaRachamim, Yastireha B'Seter Kenafav Leolamim, Vitzror HaChaim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu, Nachalata, V'tanuach b'shalom amishkava v'nomar Amen.
On the inside of our pamphlets, we read the translation of El Maleh Rachamim. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Sue Pinsky-Gardner, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may her repose be peace. Amen.
Friends, this concludes the services here at the synagogue. The interment and burial services will continue at Memorial Park Cemetery in Skokie. For those of you traveling with us in the funeral procession to the cemetery, please do keep the following safety precautions in mind. Please make sure that your bright headlights and your four-way hazard flashers are on at all times. Please obtain an orange funeral safety sticker for your windshield, and we will be providing several, but not every car in the procession, with a magnetic orange flag to be placed on top of your car. Please do travel as close as safety permits to the car in front of you to avoid any gaps in our procession. For your own safety and security, I would suggest not speaking or texting while driving to the cemetery and the funeral procession. As we make our way through the various intersections, if the car in front of you goes through the intersection, even if the light does change, please do proceed with caution. Feel free to use your horn liberally and make every effort to follow the car in front of you as we safely and carefully make our way from here to Memorial Park Cemetery. The family will be together for Shiva at the Pinsky residence at 1080 Meadowbrook Lane in Deerfield, and they'll be together today following the interment until 5 p.m., Saturday night from 5 until 9, and Sunday from 11 until 3. The family has also requested that any memorial contributions in her memory to the JCC of Chicago. That information is available in the service folder that you should have received when you entered the sanctuary today. If you did not receive one when you came in, we do have those for you as you leave. And for those of you joining us online, all of that information regarding Shiva and memorial contributions and the Shiva coordinator is also available on our website. The following individuals have been asked to serve as pallbearers: Jonathan Ezrall, Joshua Ezrall, Greg Pinsky, Jeff Rosenzweig, David Tellisman, and Jay Felix. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise and stand in place. I would ask for the pallbearers to please come forward to my left as we escort the casket, the family, and the clergy from the sanctuary. Thank you.
Adonai roi lo echzor v'hino deshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot al mei menuchot Nafshi shovev, yishovev, yancheni